Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to another Mirror Dungeon solo video. Today we're using the new Pinky Sinclair, getting him out of story mode and into the actual Mirror Dungeon, so that I can actually talk about him, and what he does in more detail, I guess. Basically, he is probably the strongest poise identity in the game right now. And frankly, that's because that he's pretty much the only identity in the game who actually gains benefit from having more poise than just 20. Because obviously, right, once you reach 20 poise, you effectively cap out how much damage you do. And now that I'm talking about it, it's not actually true. He's not the only one who gains extra bonuses from being above 20, because Full Stop Heathcliff also gains extra damage from it, but point is, what makes him actually a good poise identity is the fact that he does have some way to gain extra benefit after he reaches 20 poise potency. And for most identities, right, it's if they're at 20 poise potency, then they just don't get any more benefits from it, because once you're at 20, you're guaranteed to crit on every single attack you make. But for this identity, if he's above 25, for every poise potency above 25, it gets converted into his unique status effect of Moonlight Azure Blade, which is effectively the status effect that gives him shield at the end of every turn. It also increases the amount of damage he does on a crit. And most importantly, it gives his skill 2 an extra coin, and his skill 3 a whole of a lot more damage and extra attack weight. Basically, it's a kind of charge that he uses based off of poise, basically. Everything is charged at the end of the day if you really want to get right down to it, but anyways, even beside that point, he's still ridiculously powerful. I mean, he effectively has two of his attacks have extra attack weight, which is kind of rare, I'd say. And technically his skill 2 doesn't have extra attack weight because it does have unfocused volley, but even still, it's he just hits really, really hard, man. He really does. And I'm going to be doing this video a little bit differently than normal. Specifically, I'm just going to skip all of the in-between sections and just show you the ego gifts that we picked up along the way. Because, I don't know. I feel like doing it the other way where I interrupt myself. It's too interrupting, and I lose track of what I'm talking about, basically. But, in any case, how exactly does this identity play? Because obviously, he is the best poise identity in the game, and as such, he pretty much has infinite poise. He'll never run out of a poise stack. It's almost impossible for him to actually do that. So how do you actually play him then? Well, you start with most other recent identities in the game so far by using his defense skill. As by using his defense skill, it gives him a ton of poise potency and a little bit of count, which allows him to effectively speedrun to that max of 25 poise potency he needs in order to start getting Moonlight Azure Blade. And then, once he reaches that point, and he starts actually gaining Moonlight Azure Blade, then he can use his defense skill again, which will then convert into an evade skill. And one of the most important things about this is the fact that if he evades an attack, he gains a crit damage up buff, as well as if he does not attack in a turn, he gets slash power bonus. Which means that you kind of want to use his defense skill before he actually attacks every single turn, because he just gets a whole lot of extra damage effectively for free by doing that. So he's definitely one of those identities where you never actually want to use his skill 1, ever, because you could instead just use his defense skill to get a massive damage boost on his skill 2 or skill 3. And that's honestly basically how he plays. You use his defense skill to max out his poise stack, and then keep using his defense skill to gain damage buffs, so that you can then use his very powerful skill 2 or skill 3 to completely decimate any enemy he faces. Very cool identity. Kind of boring, in my opinion. Especially when compared to, you know, the other identity that released alongside him with Lamp Gregor, who's 100 times cooler, in my opinion. But he's still pretty strong, so you wouldn't complain about having him, I'd say. Anyway, as for the actual run itself, the first 2 floors, pretty easy, obviously. That's why I talked through them. And floor 3 here is against Kromer, who, if you don't know, she's unique because she auto-staggers you. She auto-staggers you on turn 3, no matter what, because of her gaze status effect. And there's nothing you can do about it to stop it. So obviously, the strategy is to corrode on turn 3, because that's the only way to negate the stagger. And then you have to basically beat her down. Or you hope that you end up staggering her at the end of turn 3, so that she can't actually inflict gaze again immediately afterwards, like she did. But it's really not that big of a deal, because if you do it right, then it's very easy to avoid it. Like, the main reason why I kind of skipped a turn effectively to make sure that when she did stagger us the second time with gaze, it wasn't actually a problem. Because if I did too much damage that turn, then she would have automatically entered her second phase, and while it's not that big of a deal because it doesn't really do that much damage, it's still damage at the end of the day that I didn't want to take. And yeah, her second phase is 100 times easier. And here is the Knight of Despair. Typical fight, love this fight, best fight in the game. And that is why it's the best fight in the game, because my queen is here. Anyway, it's a pretty easy fight, honestly. Like, one of the things that makes the Knight of Despair particularly easy for certain identities is whether or not you have attack weight on your skills. Because if you have attack weight on your skills, that means you can kind of ignore the Knight's swords when she actually summons them. And by doing that, it means that you can have more skills that actually end up targeting the Knight herself, and therefore you do more damage and have an easier time knocking her, you know, knocking her down into the required damage. I don't know what I'm saying. You have an easier time killing the Knight of Despair, that's what I'm saying. Honestly, one of the big problems I have with using this identity is it's not really a problem with the identity, but more so like the fact that I'm using him kind of wrong half the time. Because one of the big things is that his skill 2 only gets its 4th coin if he has 10 of his Moonlight Azure Blade. And this is fine, right? Because it's not that hard to get that much of his status effect, right? But if you're soloing with him and you end up using 2 of his skill 3s before any of his skill 2s, then it consumes 15 of the Azure Blade and automatically just cancels the 4th coin of his skill 3 of his skill 2. It's not that big of a deal, but it is like a big mistake I make most of the time. Like this turn right here, I'm pretty sure I make that mistake here. And it's like, it doesn't really make the fight any harder, right? But it just means that, like, I miss out on a whole bunch of extra damage for absolutely no reason. Because if the second skill 3 here was actually a skill 2, then it would have a 4th coin instead of only having 3 coins, but it is what it is. That's what happens when you don't play a character properly and can't read. Typical Project Moon fan, am I right? Other than that, though, this fight's really not that bad. I mean, we are fatal to pierce damage, but, like, literally after we get out of the first 2 turns or so, then we have an evade, and evades are stupidly broken. Honestly, that's probably why Project Moon has been avoiding using evades in recent memory. Like, it's been a very long time since we had an identity with an actual evade. And now we have an identity with an evade, and it's one that he can't use off turn 1, you know? He has to build up a lot of poise potency before he can even get access to his evade. And honestly, I'm perfectly fine with that. Like, what's the word I'm looking for? That concept of how to use, how to make new evade identities. Because evades are overpowered, it's objective. And so the only way to really balance evades is by making them difficult to get access to. And that's basically the only way to truly balance them.
자, 악당 배치 성공! 오늘도 정말 멋진 활약이었어.
Next floor is the Pequod Trio, which is pretty difficult, I'd say. Because of our Pierce Fatality, but also because, since I'm using Cavernous Wailing as Sinclair's Zayn Ego, like I always do, we're also fatal to Gluttony and Envy damage, which is the only 2 damage types that both Queequeg and Starbuck do, so yeah. Lots and lots of damage here. But, fortunately, in case you missed it, we do actually have Greycoat, which is very good, because Sinclair actually has 2 skills that benefit from it. Both his skill 1, because it's a gloom skill, and his skill 2, because it has natural attack weight. Unfortunately, his skill 3 doesn't work, because Greycoat can't actually heal you at all if your skill gains attack weight, like, not naturally. The skill needs to have attack weight at base for Greycoat to actually register it as a skill with attack weight. And that's why, despite the fact that our skill 3 does have attack weight, it doesn't heal. But our damage is really, really good, and as a result, it's pretty easy to stagger everybody as long as we can actually end up surviving their skills. And yeah, if it wasn't for Greycoat, pretty difficult fight. And honestly, it's not only just Greycoat that makes it, or I should say, it's not only the fatalities that makes this fight difficult, because another big thing is the fact that we just don't have any ego resource generating gifts right now, and as a result, we can't actually change our resistances. Because if we had ego resource gifts, then we would have been able to use an ego on turn 1 and turn off both the envy weakness and the gluttony weakness. And as a result, we would have taken a lot less damage, and this fight would have been a lot easier. But that wasn't an option. because for some reason I wanted to start this fight with the Jolly Plushie instead of the typical ego resource generating gifts that I usually start with.
별로 효과적이지 않은 것 같은데. 사랑의 힘이
But yeah, Greycoat. It's the GOAT. What can I say?
와, 엄청난 공격이었어. 기념할 만한 걸. 오늘도 정말 멋진 활약이었어.
저놈들 흐름이 바뀌었어.
Next floor is against Cassetti. Honestly, I picked this floor because I wanted the Crystallized Blood ego gift for a future floor. And that's pretty much the only reason why I did it. I mean, honestly, I didn't really need it because if I want anti-bleed, then I could just change the support passives for Rhodia and Hong Lu into their anti-bleed characters, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted the Crystallized Blood instead. And so here we are, fighting Cassetti. It's also pretty nice because it's a fight that benefits a lot from the extra attack weight from his skill 2 and even skill 3, since there are a lot of enemies in the first half of this fight. And by having a lot of attack weight, it just helps to speed up the thing a hell of a lot. I mean, as you can see, one skill kills 3 enemies. It's very powerful.
예상한 것보다 움직임이 더 좋군.
한순간 반짝이는 틈새를 베어
이것 봐. 환상체를 제압하는 알아듣지 못하는 충분하잖아.
단단히 포기하지 마시게.
우월해지는 것인데.
But yeah, I don't really have much to say about this fight. It's a pretty typical Cassetti fight where he's just a complete pushover because he just doesn't do anything. Even if he had Blood Feast, it wouldn't do anything.
제압 개체에게 큰 피해를 준 것 같아. 유진의 그동안 완벽한 공격이었어.
왕국의 주인 앞에 예를 갖춰라. 반역의 죄는 처형이 마땅하리라.
저들이 이상한 기운을 부르고 있어요.
일수 베어 떨고
It's definitely kind of a little surprising how we don't really have a whole lot of damage here, to be honest. I mean,
반짝이는
actually, it really isn't, because most of his damage actually does come from the Moonlight Azure Blade.
소리와 호흡을 멈추고
And because you keep using the skill 3, right? Like, since I wouldn't write it here, it all went into the skill 3. But it's... The skill 3 is really not that good for just pure damage. Unless, of course, you're using it at its max damage potential with 20 of the Moonlight Azure Blade. But before that, it's kind of underwhelming. Like, only 300 damage. That's pretty weak.
판도는 유리하나 교만하면 뒤집어지는 거.
Especially for being this late in the mirror dungeon, so...
경계.
Definitely probably would have been able to kill Cassetti a lot earlier if I actually used skill 2s more than skill 3s, but it is what it is.
소리와 호흡을 멈추고
있는 힘껏 찔러놓고 웃겨놨지만 저것들은 언젠가 다시 재생하겠지.
이건 직원들에게 유리한 상황 같아요.
Next up is the fight against Gia Q. Another fairly easy fight, but I think it's pretty fitting. I mean, he's technically... No, he's not technically. He is a Pinky member, so it's the Pinky versus the Pinky, which is pretty cool.
제압 개체의 상태가 나빠졌어요. 소피팀을 불러야 할지도 모른다고
시원합니다.
생각하고 있었는데.
That's pretty much the extent of what I can actually talk about for this fight. I don't really have much to say about it.
우리만으로 충분하잖아.
큰 흐름을 뒤집은 건 아니나.
시연합니다. 한순간 반짝이는 틈새를 베어
방금 어떻게 하신 거죠?
엄청난 공격이었어요. 어떻게 저렇게 강하실 수 있죠?
시연합니다. 이야. 일순 베어 떨구는 것 목도하시길.
칼날이 잘 드네요.
배워라.
아마 그 공격이 약점이었겠죠?
한순간 반짝이는 틈새를 베어
해냈구나. 나라도 그랬을 거야.
검문 확보. 이야.
向こうにも事情があるのでしょう。ですが、私たちは止まれません。
시연합니다. 일순 베어 떨구는 것 목도하시길. 한순간 반짝이는 틈새를 베어
방금 공격. 다음에 다른 기체에게도 다시 해봐줄래? 영상으로 남기면 다른 직원에게도 도움이 될지도 몰라.
시연합니다. 검문 확보. 참살. 검문 확보. 이야. 일순 베어 떨구는 것 목도하시길. 한순간 반짝이는 틈새를 베어
아, 그 공격은 적합하진 않아 보이네요. 관리법에 적어둬야.
검문 확보. 이야.
배워라. 묘.
소리와 호흡을 멈추고
오늘도
꺼내지 않았다.
정의로운 날이 될 수
사라지지
있도록
않았어요.
힘내자. 다 함께 아르카나 비트.
시연합니다.
네 의지대로
검문
더 보여봐라.
이야. 이야.
와, 엄청난 공격이었어. 기념할 만한걸?
참살.
굉장해요.
일순 베어 떨구는 것 목도하시길.
방금 멋졌어.
한순간
너희들의
반짝이는
사랑의
틈새를
힘이,
베어
빛의 힘이. 저 어둡고 악한 아르카나들의
공격은
소리와
힘들었어.
호흡을 멈추고
이대로면 승리도 시간 문제겠지?
소리와 호흡을 멈추고
그거 그렇게 하는 거 맞아? 거의 손방망이인데? 있잖아. 사실 마법 소녀들은 항상 운명난에
시험이다.
시달리거든. 너희만 괜찮다면 혹시
한순간
별로 효과적이지
반짝이는
않은 것
틈새를
같은데. 사랑의 힘이
검문
부족한 걸지도? 자, 앞당 배치 성공! 오늘도 정말 멋진 활약이었어.
And for the next floor is against Bamboo Hatted Kim.
시연합니다.
This is the fight that is the reason why I wanted to pick up the crystallized blood from Cassetti's floor. Because one of the biggest dangers that Kim has is how much bleed damage he inflicts on turn 1. And it's completely unavoidable too. I did the math before, but it's a lot. It really is. And coupled with the fact that Kim himself just hits pretty dang hard, it can be quite difficult to deal with the bleed damage. But honestly, because we have an evade, it was probably unnecessary to pick up the crystallized blood. We could have easily done it, and also gray coat as well, but like, even without gray coat or the crystallized blood, the evade is enough to make sure that the bleed damage is not really an issue. I mean, his counter skill could be an issue because, you know, if you take a lot of bleed damage, then you'll end up below your stagger threshold. And then his counter skill will be able to activate and stagger you. But of course we did end up staggering him before he could use his counter skill in the first place, so it probably wouldn't have been an issue even with that, so it's whatever. Kim is kind of scary in theory, but sometimes in practice he's not even harder than like some of the earliest bosses in the game, so it's kind of a toss-up as to which one he is. And for the next floor, we have the Dreaming Electric Sheep. Pretty easy boss whose only gimmick is how much health he has. Now, honestly, it's not even that much nowadays. Especially with extreme mode and everything like that. But one of the coolest things about this fight, in particular, is the fact that skills with extra attack weight are actually really good for playing into this fight's gimmick. Because how this fight's gimmick work is you have to attack the generator so that you can grab a plug and then plug it into the sheep by clashing against this skill right here, grounding refusal. And if you have a skill with extra attack weight, it makes it that much easier to actually play into this fight's gimmick, because it makes it so you don't actually have to clash against the generator, because all it needs is for you to attack the generator instead of clashing against it. And so because of that, you can just ignore the generator in its entirety, and you'll still be able to play into the gimmick because your attack weight hits the generator. Of course, it doesn't really matter for this fight in particular because, like, the only thing that the gimmick actually does is it auto-staggers the sheep. And if you can stagger the sheep before that it happens, then its gimmick basically does nothing, so. It's pretty interesting to say that extra attack weight is actually really good in this fight. But yeah, because it's in the mirror dungeon and so late and we have so much damage, it doesn't really matter. It's also kind of a bit of a bad thing here after the sheep has been staggered, because there's no way to manipulate your attack weight in such a way where it doesn't target the generator at all, and therefore the unfocused volley nature of Sinclair's skill 2 can actually be a bit of a detriment if it ends up only targeting the generator. But luckily that only happened like once, so it's no big deal. And for the final fight, we have the King in Binds. Honestly, this is a fairly difficult fight because we don't have a lot of clash power, to be honest. Like, this ego skill is pretty much our strongest ego skill we have in terms of, like, raw clash power. At least for the ones that I'm currently running.
엄청난 공격이었어.
And it can't even,
어머,
like,
너무
win a
아프게
clash
들리는데?
against half of the Pequod skills on turn 1.
시연합니다.
And it's like, yeah, our skill 3 could, and even our skill 2. I don't think our skill 2 can. It only rolls like a 22, honestly. So it's not really that good for clashing, but the skill 3 can, but it's not very good against the Pequod because it doesn't gain attack weight until like turn 3. And as a result, we have to use that ego and get lucky with our speed in order to actually beat it.
교육에 완벽한 공격이었어.
반짝이는 틈새를
And because of that, it's like this is like the 3rd or 4th attempt at actually beating this fight that was actually successful. And it's all because of getting unlucky with the speed and like we undersped the Pequod half the time and therefore we couldn't clash with the ego skill before we died.
시연합니다. 입수 대역 떨구른가.
Fortunately, the extra attack weight of our skills makes it pretty easy for us to just speedrun
반짝이는
through the first half of this fight against the Pequod.
한 번에 이렇게나. 저거 뭐 하려는 거지?
And the king himself is a complete and total pushover. I really do want to see him, like, in Refraction Railway 4, the rerun event, with a lot of unbreakable coins. Like, give him a lot of unbreakable coins. I want to see all of his animations. Make every single one of his skill have an unbreakable coin. Hell, make it even cooler. Have him join the fight while with the Pequod instead of him sitting in the background the entire time. I mean, that kind of defeats the thematic purpose, but like, I don't know. He should have something here with him than just, you know, himself. It'd make his fight a lot more interesting.
역시 저는 생각
Basically, what I'm saying is his second phase needs a complete rework.
오롯한 검의 길에 한가운데
있는 힘껏
He deserves it. He's way too cool not to.
저것들은 언젠가 다시 재생하겠지.
시연은 어떠셨나요? 소생은 나름의 소득을 얻었다고 생각합니다만 이들의 수급을 들고 돌아가 주인님을 뵌다면 어쩌면 이번에야말로 지혜성의 이름을 입에 올리실지도 모르겠군요.
And that's how we beat Mirror Dungeon 6 hard using only the Pinky Sinclair. He is, without a doubt, the strongest poise identity in the game. And that's saying a lot because before this I probably thought that like full stop Heathcliff was the best poise identity in the game, and he's ridiculously good. But yeah, the extra attack weight and like his very easy consistent nature of actually being able to maintain a poise stack and do a lot of damage, and the fact that he's not restricted by things like bullets, it makes him a lot better. Anyway, that's it from me. Like and subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.